There are two approaches one can take towards experiencing freedom. One approach is to focus on the outer world, trying to free oneself from something outside. I don't change, but I'm trying to change something outside. Freedom from a situation, freedom from a relationship, even freedom from a past experience. That might create temporary freedom, but it's in some ways a false sense of freedom. Whatever created that situation, or that relationship, or that type of bondage to a past event, in some ways, it involves something inside of me. Real or true lasting freedom is about changing the cell. Going inside. And liberating such a powerful and fulfilling sense of self. So often a feeling of bondage comes because I wanted something from the outer world. To go inside and embark on the journey of inner fulfillment will create such a powerful and free stage that I'm not only unaffected by scenes and situations, but I'm able to serve. A free mind is able to serve, create spaces of dignity for others, liberate others from their inner bondages. Which freedom do I want? Limited outer freedom? Or that unlimited inner freedom? Where the heart is very, very content. The mind is very, very peaceful. And my highest potential is fully liberated. Free in any situation. Om Shanti.
Yes, and it's a one. Oh, I think about it. Oh, yes, before it rains. Did you turn some music on?
Om Shanti. Good evening. Welcome to Interview with the Raj Yogi. Tonight's topic is real freedom, real quality of being. And so often these topics are inspired by morning class for regular students of Raja Yoga. And so this actually is a topic I think maybe tangentially I've been thinking about because I've just returned from Peace Village. And I have been reflecting a lot, perhaps maybe the experiences that participants have shared. But what is real peace? What is real silence? And at least personally for myself, being on this journey, that has been an increased marked distinction of what that is. So it really inspired today's topic. But what was quite interesting in the class today was that the quality of actually what I wanted to call it was letting go. The quality of letting go seems to determine what I'm feeling inside, even though we look for peace from all sorts of places. And I know silence has been something that has really been something that you've treasured a lot, and I know you go deep into that. So I was wondering if maybe we can start first in terms of what is peace and silence, and why are we having this conversation? There seems to be different levels or qualities of that, especially when someone just isn't peace, just peace.
Om Shanti. So maybe to start, this idea of real freedom or real peace, in a nutshell, it's, if you add the word inner, then it becomes real. So when it's unconditional or unlimited, what we call inner freedom or inner peace, that to me is the real thing. And I think it's very relevant. I know you mentioned the call of the time because the outer world is becoming more and more chaotic and just more unpredictable. And I saw the quote the other day. It says, today's goal, stay calm in every situation. So that's real freedom, where you're responding from what we call our intrinsic form. So the reason silence is part of moving towards the real freedom, because in silence, there's the sound of what is eternal or true or real. So in silence, if it's the real deal, there's different ideas of silence as well. But in this particular silence, spiritual silence, I have an experience of my intrinsic or true state. That's actually what I'm trying to liberate. So I'm not trying to get freedom from something outside. I'm trying to free something inside that will make me remain free as I move through the outer world.
It's fascinating because, at least for myself, it has been a journey. Very young in the study, I remember you had shared that you were a recipient of the Peace Medal Awards at the YMCA, and in your speech, you were sharing that peace is a personality. And I'm not sure who was speaking afterwards, but they were intrigued by just you sharing that peace is a personality. I think she was further ahead than me, because when you shared that, I was like, I still don't know what that means. And I realized that perhaps we maybe not take it for granted is the right phrase, but we can become desensitized that we don't realize peace has become a reaction. It has become a conditional thing. I don't know if we actually ever think about that until someone really points it out. And even after that, taking time to really reflect on that.
Yes, I think most of us really have moved into that way of operating where everything is a reaction to how I feel. So if something happens inside, it determines how I feel. If I don't like how I feel, then I want freedom from whatever I identify outside as causing the problem. And that obviously is crazy making. And I think increasingly impossible in today's world to try to control it to that level. So people are even starting to become, lose hope in the destiny of humanity, because it just, we're seeking so much, expecting, demanding so much from the outer world and each other. And actually the key is within ourselves. So to even get to first step, to acknowledge that I have to look within myself, just to get that far, I think is already a freedom of its own.
This is a famous question about timing. I was wondering what your thoughts are in terms of timing, in terms of when one starts to detect that it is my sense of peace sort of situational. And perhaps maybe that was another thing I was thinking about when I was at this Call of the Time retreat.
So today I saw a very sweet video about how to keep fruits and vegetables going, for they go bad so quickly. But it also talked about ripening, that if you put things with bananas or with, I think it's apples or pears, then they will ripen more quickly. So it is true that everyone has their own time, but for those who have crossed over that line and really started to discover and experience that real freedom, have started to access this incredible capacity of the human spirit, part of freedom is becoming a server, actually. A truly free soul automatically becomes a server. So they're starting to create a vibration that is ripening other souls. So I often feel the best support or cooperation we can give to someone isn't to say, you really need to do this, or hurry up and get it together or figure it out. We can't, it's like pushing something. It's quite violent in some ways, but just to simply continue to focus on the self, free my mind to just experience liberation of my own capacity, creates a vibration that helps to ripen other souls, if you will, move them and sort of accelerate their timing as well.
Well, so many questions I could ask, but I don't want to steer away from what has inspired this. But that aspect you're talking about, it's not really freedom from things out there, but freeing this intrinsic sense of self. That I find that intriguing. I didn't really think about it that way. Or perhaps maybe it might not be something that we think about often, when we often feel that the source of peacelessness is caused by something outside, and that Raja Yoga is really actually looking at, a sense of value inside. And so many of the things that we are doing in this world is always running away from the situation, or the source of the issue is always out there. And maybe it's terrifying to think that taking personal responsibility seems like it's a big thing, like it's overwhelming. But what are your thoughts about what it means to take personal responsibility before someone says, you mean I'm the one who should be blamed for what's going on?
I actually think it's protecting one's own well-being to take personal responsibility. I know it came up in a conversation at the Call of the Time about anger, but there's a story of, and I'm not going to get it right, so I apologize, but hopefully the gist will come across. But Nelson Mandela, as he was being freed from prison, and as he's walking between these two gates, he is realizing that although he's physically liberated, he will still be in a prison of his own making. He will self-destruct if he does not walk out of that second gate without any enmity. So it's his own sanity. It's quite selfish, actually, to pursue inner freedom. Otherwise, there's the anger, there's the bitterness, the resentment, all of these things that thing out there is really destroying the quality of my life. So I start to have these kinds of thoughts and feelings, which actually damage the self more than anything else. So personal responsibility is actually a very selfish move in that it is really caring for my own sanity.
It's interesting because I was seeing a patient today and keeping things very generic, but I always feel that working with individuals with pain actually has a deep spiritual significance to it. And because this individual has gone through a lot in their life, a lot in their occupation that they were in. And in this occupation, no effective way to cope with things. So they've resorted to perhaps maybe unhealthy habits. But that has led to what two of the team members had actually, I would include myself as well. So three of us independently have come to a conclusion that how he's feeling inside in day-to-day situations because of what this individual has gone through leads to just constant flares of pain and unexplained things going on. But the reason why I was bringing that up is because perhaps we don't realize, because in the end, this individual actually started to take personal responsibility. It was a big thing to say that there might be something going on inside that hasn't really been resolved when he was really looking for a physiological reason. But I felt it was so courageous of him to take personal responsibility in the sense that, as you were saying, it's actually something that seems to be much more empowering than it is actually about being disempowered.
I think it becomes clear to us in certain scenarios. If someone, say, has an addiction and it's very self-destructive to every aspect of their health, their physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, then we see that we would often say they're in bondage to that addiction. And so we would do everything we can to support that soul in becoming liberated from that addiction. So it turns out we're all addicted to things that are quite harmful and damaging to the self, but they're quite incognito. They could be thought patterns, attitudes, perspectives, perceptions, memories of the past. So we just can't, we're so attached to them. So we're moving into this realm of letting go and the role that understanding can play, because I think personal responsibility frightens people because it seems harsh. It sort of feels like grit my teeth and I'm going to go through a gauntlet kind of thing. It's historically been kind of a very painful or violent thing. So we often talk about putting the mother in front in our spiritual study. It's amazing the difference that understanding can make. Knowledge has power. Enlightenment or understanding, insight, realization, whatever you want to call it, is extremely empowering in terms so that I actually start to enjoy personal responsibility.
So this study is about Raja Yoga. And so you mentioned this one key piece about the power of understanding. And something you are mentioning about it's not liberating myself from sources of pain out there, but liberating this true intrinsic sense of self. And oftentimes we mention in Raja Yoga, it's experiencing, experiencing the knowledge. You hear that you are, a being, a soul, and going into the experience of that. What are your thoughts and your experience in terms of that freedom? There is a knowing, or you're learning to have a context of who you really are, but the experience of yourself in terms of where does that play a role in terms of the letting go?
realization of self, or we might, in a very layman term, say belief in self, is the key. So I'm in an industry, fitness, where I have seen so many remarkable people who have all the odds against them doing things that you and I could never even imagine. So the other day, seeing a video of someone wheelchair bound doing crazy stuff on gymnastic apparatus. And wondering the whole time as I watched them, what happened inside that they said, I can do this. And they just had a sense of self that was overriding all of this other past evidence, if you will. So that's a very deep understanding. We say, who am I is the entry point into this journey towards liberation, to have a deep realization of the self. You can't see the photo now, but there's a photo on our side about some early students of the study. And the one in the middle with the garland mama, there's a story about her. Thank you, Nora. It's show and tell.
It adds to the experience.
It does. It's multimedia now. That she, had a very strong sense of what we can probably call her highest or full potential. And it's really beyond anything we can, I think all of us scratch the surface in terms of really knowing what the human spirit's capable of. But she had a very strong sense, so it made incredible. The personal responsibility was off the scale for the soul. And some would come up to her and say, well, you know that you are this, so why are you making so much effort if it's destined? And she says, it's because I know I am capable of this, that I'm making this effort. So that's the key to unlock that will or override power within the self, that personal responsibility, is having really deep recognition of the self as a soul. We've had so many conversations lately, not just soul, but what type of soul? What is my capacity? And I just want to add to that so often we say children of God, and really to reflect on what that would mean in terms of my capacity as a child of that one.
So we started a little late, so just so you're mindful, that's why we're running a little late on purpose. But one thing that I've noticed that has come up often during the call of the time, what the participants have shared, and perhaps maybe even other students in the study, is being able to grapple and discern the difference from just thinking about, that I'm a soul, and actually going into the experience, because self-realization feels like it's deeply dependent on actually experiencing. And to be able to know the difference for yourself, how do you know that you feel that you're actually experiencing it? It seems like a silly question, but it seems like it's like the $1 million question all the time, is that we sometimes think that we are actually experiencing when we're just thinking about it, talking about it.
I know that was actually your question earlier. So the addictions or attachments or bondages that we're trying to take responsibility to override, those are actually going to fight back. And they are going to, just like sometimes there's certain medications that are blockers in neuroreceptors, they're going to try to block me having an experience. I'm capable of having an experience, but they're going to try to numb or deceive me. So I need to know that's going to happen, because it is critical to actually not just think it, but experience it. And obviously, one of the big signs that we talk about is liberation, mukti, or peace. So we say Om Shanti. But, one of the titles for God that I've always really enjoyed is Sat Chit Anand, the deep, deep contentment. In other words, zero desires in the soul is a sign that I've gone there. So that my time with the Supreme Soul is not about asking for this, that, or the other thing. Whatever is going on is absolutely fine. That's not, I'm starting to use my relationship with that being to transform the self. That's a sign that I've actually gone to soul consciousness.
I feel like you just took us there in a glimpse, like you were sharing. Lovely. I feel that we just need another evening to share, but I've said that many times, right? So I'm not going to say that.
Parallel universe.
I might as well just write it down somewhere. Otherwise, I will not remember what the name of the topic is. So we will have a little reflection.
It is said that the truth will set you free. And if I take that saying and just apply it to science, I will study the outer world, the physical world, trying to get to the truth of physicality in the hopes it will set me free. But if I apply that saying to silence, going beyond everything physical into a realm that's quiet, timeless, beyond, so I can hear the true nature of the self. Hear my own unlimited stage of peace and lightness and contentment, fullness, harmony. To become free of all the noise, all the temporary identities of the self, and come into a quiet space where I can hear or experience the timeless identity of the self. That is the truth that will set me free. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Thank you for joining with us this evening. Once again, we still have not received ever any emails of suggested topics, but in case you are pulled, you're welcome to email us. We need part 2 on this topic. Thank you, Binny. I'll just make sure I write something down on this. Binny, if you have other questions about part 2, please make sure to send something to us. But wanted to inform souls that we are coming to the beginning of June. We have some important dates to share with souls. One is that there is International Day of Yoga, which takes place on June 21st, and this is a United Nations recognized day. And so there are a couple of programs that have been offered by the Brahma Kumaris, one through the Brahma Kumaris at United Nations. And it's 21 days leading up to June 21st, and a deeper meaning of the different postures of Hatha Yoga. And so if you are looking for more information from that, I will pass it on to you. I'm not sure when you find it.
So, yeah, you may, I don't have the website offhand, but even if you Google Brahma Kumaris United Nations, you will get to their website, and they have the information on their website. So Brahma Kumaris at the United Nations.
If you were on email, you would have gotten the notice. So it was really for those who may not be on there. There is another one that's offered through the United Kingdom Brahma Kumari Center as well. Also 21 days of a meaningful experience. And so that is one date or dates to keep in mind. But here in Calgary, there is also a special program happening on Wednesday, June 21st, International Day of Yoga at Scarborough Hall, 6:30 to 8 o'clock. And the topic is, or the theme is, Journey of a Yogi. And so we have the fortune of a Raj Yogi student. So how long? 50 years, over 50 years. Atam Prakash from the spiritual headquarters visiting us. And so he will be with us that evening. And I believe this program is like a lovely interview format. So it's going to be very wonderful. And thank goodness I'm not the one who has to do the interview. So please don't show that. Give me that surprise in the evening. No, I'm sure that Sister Judy will be the one. And I believe there is a Hindi Raja Yoga Foundations that's taking place as well on the Wednesdays in June. And so there's always a workshop on the first Sunday of the month, but I believe there are actually 2 in the month of June. So all of that is on the Calgary Center's website, and you'll also find us on Eventbrite as well if you just type in BK Calgary. So thank you again for joining with us. Om Shanti.